Okay, part 2. Let's get it going. Identify the interval, or z, on which the function is positive. The graph if needed. Well, we're going to do that. So, what you do, step 1, is you find the 0. X plus 5. And again, these are our zeros. Notice how I put the y equal to 0. So, x would be 6. Here, it's a happy face. We don't need to know what it looks like, but that's what it kind of sort of looks like. So where is this positive? So what are those two intervals? This one would be negative infinity all the way to negative 5, parentheses, because that point right there is not the end from 6 all the way to positive infinity. To the right, it's above. Let's try this one. Same thing. Set y. That's where y is 0, because it's not above or below the x-axis. Try to factor this. 7 and 4. Nothing work. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4. From this one, negative. And negative 7, 5, 6, like this. So similar to the last one, you got this section and that section. Remember, there's arrows on the end. So from negative infinity all the way to negative 7 is above the x-axis, and from negative 4 to the right for infinity. Sorry for the mess, but that's it. This guy, a little bit different. Maybe some of you might want to resort to your calculator. And that'll be x squared minus 3x minus 4. I took a negative 1 out of all of these. And so now I'm going to factor it. X and draw a little picture. My 0 would be 4, and this one would be negative 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a 0. Red face, so it goes up and it comes down. So where's my positive on this one? Right here. So what is 1 all the way to 4? There's the positive interval of the green space. All right, now we're just going to deal with a number negative 1. I squared equals negative 1. These are your go-to rules. We're going to FOIL this. 5 times 2 is 10. Now we're going to go. It is plus 6i, and then negative 3i times i is actually negative 3i squared. This is where we're going to mess up. That's the same. It's just 3. 3 and 10 is 13. 5i and 6i is 11i. So this is pretty straightforward, hammer out numbers sort. FOIL, negative 6 outside, negative times a negative is positive, and I get 9i. In here, I get 4i and 6i squared. Take your time here. That's the same thing as negative 6 times negative 1, which is actually positive 6. What's 6 and negative? Cancel. These two things added together, 13i. On to number 21. I get the radical out of the denominator. So we've got to multiply this by the conjugate. The instructions are a little strange. And then I got to distribute 15 minus 5i. Then down here, I taught that you can fool. Now you can go ahead and FOIL, but the out cancel. So 3 times 3 is 9. I times negative I is negative I squared, which is actually 9 plus 1. Because I squared is negative 1, which is plus 1. 9 plus 1 is 10. I can take a 5 out of all these, so 3 minus I all over 2, and that would be considered Here, the only way you're going to get that out of there is by multiplying by the conjugate, and then I have to multiply this by the conjugate. Down here I can have to. So let's get to work. 2 times 1 is 2. Outside is negative 4i. Inside is negative 3i. Negative times next I squared. Now let's clean this up. This is the same thing as 6 times negative 1, which is negative 6. Negative 6 and 2 is negative I all over whatever we get here. So 1 times 1 is 1. 2i times negative 2i is negative 4i squared, which is actually 1 plus 4. Negative 4 is plus 4. So that'd be a 5. And there's nothing I can take out, so I would be done. All right. So multiplying complex numbers. Well, let's check into it. 2 times 4 is 8. Outside is 2i. Inside is this times 3i times I. So this checks out here. Looks like what they didn't keep going. So that's negative 3. I squared is negative 1, which is 3. 3 plus 8 is 11, so that'd be 11 minus 10i. Okay, rewrite the equations in the form da-da-da-da. That's just saying factor this. And this is a perfect square trinomial because the square root of true. Not true, not true, not true. All right, I got ahead of myself. 6 plus 6 is not negative 16. So what they're saying is complete the square and then solve it. But it doesn't say solve, it just says rewrite it. So I'm going to flip this thing around. X squared minus 6 equals negative 36. Take half of this is negative 8, square it, 64, but then I have to add 64 over here. These are on opposite sides. I write this as x minus 8 squared equals 28. And you're done. They just want this guy. I'm going to subtract 60 because I like the fact that that's a 1. Subtract 60. X squared plus 24x plus space. Take half is 12. Square it's 144. 144. This is a perfect square trinomial. This is my cheat code. Squared equals 40. That'd be 84, and we can be done. All right, we're getting to the end of this, so hang in there. Equation. Solve the following quadratic equation by completing the square. So they're telling us how to do it. So we're going to go ahead, throw that, and then take half, which is negative 12, square it, 144, 144. That's going to give 12 squared equals whatever that is, 26. Do the right thing. X minus 12 equals plus or minus the square root of 226. So now we're going to add 12, add 12. Actually, it's positive 12. 12 plus or minus the square root of 226. The constant's already over on this side, so all you have to do is create a space on both sides. Take half, 39 over here. This is x plus 7 squared equals 43. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. Plus or minus the square root of 43. Subtract 7, negative 7. Plus or minus the square root of 43. All right, so this problem, the height in meters of a punted football, remember, goes up and comes down. You know that and it says the roots, another word for roots, are zeros, which means x-intercepts are at. Well, you can't have a negative time, so you'd think, well, that's my answer. So that's my explanation, but also typed it in, and that's where you see it right here. So that right there is where it hits the actual ground after, see it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.04. So that's it. Pretty simple, actually. All right, final page. A bike manufacturer can predict profits P. That's this. So you got to keep track of this. From the quadratic function, blah, 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 where X is the price of the bike. Price. At what point will the company make zero? Right here is telling you that the parabola is going to be like this. And with that in mind, what we're going to do, where the profit, remember, is P, which is Y, we're going to find out where Y is 0. That's what this means. So it's 15x squared minus 18x minus 24. Now, because this is an equation, and I can see that all of these numbers are divisible, but anytime you can get that to happen, it's sure nice. And so now I'm going to take it's negative 40, two factors of negative 40 that add up to negative 6, negative 10, and 4. Now again, you can make that A, make that B, make that C. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to use this. So 5x squared minus 10x plus 4x minus 8. Slap some parentheses in there. I can take a 4 out there, x minus 2. I see my match, so it's x minus 2 times 5x plus 4 equals 0. Remember, that's my Y, $0 in profit. Well, when x is 2, profit. But if I solve this one, 5x plus 4 is 0, and I subtract 4, I'd get 5x is negative 4. I'd get x is negative 4/5. How can you produce a negative number of bikes? You can't. So at 2, that's where I'd be making a $0 profit. Use the quadratic formula. So here we are. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Negative 16, c 24. So we take the opposite of b, we square b, minus 4c all over 2a, which is 2. Now here's our work right in here. So this is 96. So 256 minus 90. My head and mess up this whole video. 256 minus 96, 160. So I get 16 all over 2. Do I leave it like that? No way, Jose. I can see that this can be broken down. It's a little bit difficult. So that would be 16 plus or minus 4 square root of 10 all over 2. Now I can take a 2 out of everything. So that'd be 8 plus or minus 2. But you don't need to do that. All right, this one, here's my A, here's my B, here's my C. Plug it in. 18, take the opposite minus the square root of b squared, which is 324. So if I squared negative 18, I would get 324. C all over 2a, which is 4 in this case. So this is 840. So 324 minus 40 plus or minus the square root of 284 all over 4. And so a rule that I learned a long time ago is If the last two digits are divisible by 4, then it will go into that number. So I'll just wing it, and it's 71. 71 all over 4. Take a 2 out, take a 2 out. So that'd be 9 plus or minus 1 square root of 71 all over 2. Almost done, guys. This is 1, that's A, this is B, this is C. So the opposite of B is negative. That's what B squared is, minus 4 times A times C all over 2A, which is 2. Now I got 25 minus 8 stuck in here. Minus the square root of 17 all over 2. And there's nothing to do, so count your blessings. Last one. Looks like they're throwing some with it. So the opposite of B would be 5 plus or minus the square root. If I square negative 5, I get 25. This will always be positive because you're squaring it. A times C all over 2A, which is 6. So I'm going to use my calculator here. 228. So I really have the square root of 25. A negative times a positive times a negative is positive. That's a tricky. So if I add those together, I get 253. So 5 plus or minus the square root of 253 all over 6. Let me just make sure 49 doesn't go in there, and then it's a real tricky problem. Good. All right. So there's that. Find the values of k that will cause the equation to have one real solution. All right, give me 1 second here. So to understand this, we got to recall that when we deal with the discriminant, if this stuff is negative, you have no real solutions. If this stuff is a positive number, you have 2 real solutions, but one is getting a situation where the discriminant is 0. So if we take a look at this, this is our A, this is our B, this is our C. We need B squared minus 4AC to actually end up equaling 0. Because in the formula, if this one answer is this guy over this guy, and that's your one answer. So I hope that helped you. So now we're just going to plug things in. So we get negative, that's what B is, minus 4 times A times C equals 0. Now this is k squared. 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64 equals 0. We're going to add 64 to both sides. And we get k squared equals 64. And great thing. So the two values for k, plus or minus 8. And that ends your review. So good luck.